Am I the a-hole for staying true to my threats after my dad died? My dad died unexpectedly last week and my sister Jess and I lost our mom last year to a mix of cancer and the virus. From how our family acted in the past over scavenging over dead people's things, both Jess and I decided to send out a family memo on no one is to enter or take anything from our parents' house until we get there. Both Jess and I work on the West Coast, so it takes some time to get there with all of our kids and family. I saw several notifications from my parents' Ring doorbell and I'm a lawyer. I reminded my family we will prosecute. Jess and I are on the same page. Jess gets to my parents' house first and notices stuff is missing, and my parents had security cameras and an Alexa show. It showed my cousin taking stuff from the house. So Jess did what we agreed on and called the police, and two of our cousins was arrested. Because it was over $1,000, both are looking at felonies. My cousin said my dad promised him this stuff and I have my dad's will making me executor of the estate. I told him he should have waited to file a claim with estate, and everyone was warned about what would happen. Jess and I don't have the best relationship with our extended family and we are not dropping charges. Because of this drama, Dad was quietly cremated with no service, and we plan to hold one when scattered our parents' ashes at Jess's house in a tree planted for them. My last living grandma is upset about it, but she sided with my cousins and aunt, saying we are too tough on having them arrested. The first comment is not the a-hole. Your dad created a will and made you the executor of the estate for a reason. If your cousins were actually meant to have the thousands of dollars worth of items they took, they could have waited until you arrived. It sucks that they got arrested, but the first thing on their minds when losing a relative shouldn't be I should take items from their house or I'm owed these items, let me go collect. Plus you and your sister gave advanced warning, so it's not like you just randomly decided to call the police. The second comment is so your dad had a will naming you the executor and your relatives decided to steal from your dad's estate. Not the a-hole. The third comment is there is nothing quite so unedifying as the rush by distant family members to grab what they can when someone dies. Definitely not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for not letting my mother-in-law be the first person to hold my baby? When I F26 met my husband's M34 mom, I hoped for a healthy mother figure type relationship. She's okayish, but she can be a little controlling. Given that my husband is her only child, she tends to act super protective of him. When I got pregnant, mother-in-law made a request to be the first person to hold my son after he's born. She wanted to be in the delivery room with me, but I refused to let her. My husband said he'd keep her out of the room under the condition that she be the first person to hold the baby. I didn't agree but didn't disagree as well. Just stayed silent. The baby was born days ago. All my husband was worried about was having his mom be the first to meet the baby. But she was out of town attending a friend's daughter's wedding. He said she wouldn't be back till 2 days later. Mom and sister already came to help and they held my son as they were helping me after my husband went back to work. I had no to help and they were my go-to. Mother-in-law and my husband knew. They both went off and started throwing a fit, saying that I betrayed her, and that I made a promise then broke it. My husband tried to get her to calm down after she came home lashing out, but she scolded us both then walked out. He blew up at me saying I screwed up and violated the agreement we had. I said that mom and sister were helping me out, and held the baby, so what? He got more pissed and claimed I had no respect for his mom and her wishes and told me that I hurt her feelings and ruined her grandbaby's birth memory. I couldn't keep arguing. He called me unbelievably selfish and demanded I fix my mistake, but I wasn't sure what he meant by that. Like redo the baby's birth and have his mom be the first to hold him? He didn't like my sarcasm and said that what I did was sneaky and cold-hearted. He said he should have let his mom in the delivery room, otherwise none of this would have happened. They're both are still salty about it and are sulking hard. Am I the a-hole? The top comment is not the a-hole. Why do your husband and your mother-in-law seem to think that her needs are more important than yours? I've never heard of anything like this before. You've just given birth, and your needs and the baby's needs are of paramount importance. You need help from your family if and when you want it. To refuse help from your own mother and sister just for mother-in-law's sake would be detrimental to you. Also, your mother-in-law goes to a wedding just when her grandchild is born and still expects you to keep your family at bay? Ridiculous. Your mother-in-law needs to know that your health and well-being means that the baby is well cared for. Tell your husband to grow up and see what is important here. Which is you and your baby. Mother-in-law doesn't get a say, and she does not deserve special privileges just because she says so. The second comment is wouldn't the first person to hold the baby always be you, the MOM? Your mother-in-law and your husband are both assholes. Not the a-hole. The third comment is not the a-hole. Normally I would say something deep, meaningful or reassuring. But I'm speechless on this one. Good luck to you these next 20+ years. Am I the a-hole for not telling my sister I'm pregnant too, then not apologizing enough? Let me start by saying my sister, 36F, and I, 34F, have had a rocky relationship. I had a childhood illness that meant a lot of attention was focused on me instead of her, which she has resented me for. I admit that in my teen years and adult life I've had some pretty selfish, attention-seeking moments, but that I'm still trying to work on myself because it's not who I want to be. In February my husband, 36M, and I found out I was pregnant. Even though I had health issues I wasn't considered high risk, but we still decided not to tell anyone until the 12-week scan, including family, just in case. In March, my sister texts me saying she's missed her period, taken a test and is pregnant too. I called her and congratulated her but didn't tell her I was also pregnant because of what my husband and I agreed. This was grievance number 1 because she says I lied to her by not telling her the truth. As time went on I didn't know how I was going to tell her I was pregnant too. I didn't want to steal her spotlight or take any attention away from her like I did with my childhood cancer, but I also admit that I didn't want us to compare pregnancies or have our parents compare us. I guess I didn't want to share my spotlight either. After the 12-week scan we agreed to tell parents, but because I didn't know how to tell my sister I thought it best to tell my parents then ask their opinion on how to do it. We had both sets of parents over and told them at the same time. This is grievance number 2, not inviting her. My sister knew something was going on and messaged my mom, and so I said I would tell her myself. She called me that evening and I told her. She asked, so you're ahead of me? Why wasn't I invited today? I told her we wanted to tell parents first and I didn't know how to tell her, and she hung up on me. It's been 5 months. I've sent her a letter explaining my actions and a bunch of flowers saying that I should have invited her with the parents, but she's still blocked me on everything. She's had an engagement party that we weren't invited to and had missed my mom's birthday and uncle visiting from a different country because I was there, so I can tell she's still livid. I think she wants me to grovel and try harder at apologizing, but I'm now upset at her behavior. It's reminding me of how she's been pretty nasty to me in the past, saying I asked for cancer and how she has previously reacted to any good news in my life. We've never really been close and I'd say we're equally bad at not running to each other's aid. She didn't support me through my cancers, I didn't go to her housewarming, etc. I need an outside perspective and am willing to answer my questions to understand if I'm in a hole and should try harder to apologize for lying to her and not inviting her to the reveal. The top comment is, I don't know, something feels off about this post. I don't think you are TA and your parents massively dropped the ball with your sister. You and your parents may have to accept that you and your sister will never have a good relationship. The second comment is, this is going to be unpopular, but no a-holes here. There is a reason there are a ton of support groups for siblings of child cancer patients. It's because they are typically forgotten by their parents because all focus is on the child that's sick. Not that focusing on the cancer patient is wrong, but the other children become neglected and feel unloved. It sounds like from your post your parents were not good to your sister and she seems to have a lot of trauma around that. Coupled with, by your own admission, you were also not great to her. I'm not saying that her response is correct, but it seems like this was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back for her. I agree, you shouldn't have told when she told you she was pregnant. You should have reached out to her maybe a week or so later, explain you didn't want to steal her thunder, and that you were also pregnant. You absolutely should have told her when you told your parents. She has likely felt like the outsider her whole life because your parents have placed you at the center, and she got pregnancy hormones raging through her and she's taking this super personally and feeling ostracized from her family again. Honestly, the only AHs here are your parents for creating this mess. I would just give her time and space. Send her a baby gift when her baby is born and a wedding present if fences aren't mended by then, and just focus on your baby. The third comment is, no a-holes here, but tell her about how you didn't want to tell anyone ahead of the 12-week scan. It's a much more reasonable explanation than that you didn't know how to tell her. Of course, you're not obligated to tell anyone about your own health issues or concerns, and I still think it's no a-holes here if you don't. It's just that if I were in the sister's position, I feel like I would be a lot more understanding if this were the reason rather than you just didn't want to tell me or didn't know how.